Listen to me carefully. Your mind is the workshop of creation, and everything you will ever call reality must first pass through the gates of your imagination. Nothing happens outside of you until it is first conceived within you. I tell you now, you have the power to manifest anything, not by chance, not by luck, but by conscious assumption. Your imagination is not fantasy, it is the divine power clothed within you. What you dare to assume as true, even before the evidence appears, must harden into fact. When you dwell on the feeling of already being the person you wish to be, the world bends itself to reflect that inner conviction. You are not a beggar waiting for blessings. You are the source from which blessings flow. How do you activate this power? Withdraw from appearances. Close your eyes to the outer world and live inwardly in the end you desire. Feel it real until it becomes so natural that you no longer question it. Do not seek signs, become the sign. Do not chase after results, embody the result. The unseen reality within you is more solid than the fleeting shadows you call facts. Tonight, as you lie down to rest, do not surrender to the day's memories. Instead, surrender to the wish fulfilled. Enter the scene that implies your desire is already realized. Touch it, taste it, feel it until it saturates your being. Sleep in that state, and watch as the outer world aligns itself without effort. You are the operant power. You are the dreamer who must awaken and know that imagination creates reality. Dare to assume, dare to believe, dare to live now as though your desire were already yours. For if you persist, it cannot fail. Imagination is the creative power within you, the hidden force that shapes your entire experience of life. Every idea, every vision, every picture you hold in the mind is a seed planted in the unseen that will eventually grow into the visible. You are not bound by what your senses show you, for imagination transcends facts and circumstances, calling forth realities yet to be born. To imagine is to exercise the divine faculty within, to summon into existence the form of your desire. When you deliberately imagine and feel it real, you activate creation itself from within you. Everything begins as an inner assumption, for nothing can exist in your outer world that has not first taken root within. The world you see is only a mirror reflecting the state of consciousness you occupy. If you assume lack, you will meet circumstances that confirm lack. If you assume abundance, you will meet experiences that confirm abundance. Assumption is not idle wishing. It is the act of inwardly accepting a condition as true before the senses can verify it. This invisible acceptance has a magnetic power, drawing to you the people, events, and opportunities that align with the state assumed. The moment you dare to shift your inner conviction and clothe yourself in the feeling of already having what you desire, the outer world begins to rearrange itself to fit that pattern. Life does not respond to your words alone, but to the state you embody. Therefore, your task is not to fight circumstances, but to master assumption, to persist in the unseen truth until it feels natural. Once the assumption is stabilized within, it must externalize, for consciousness is the only reality, and assumption is the bridge through which desire becomes fact. What you feel as real must manifest in fact. For feeling is the secret doorway between imagination and reality. The outer world is nothing more than crystallized feelings, the embodied results of inner states you have accepted as true. When you allow yourself to enter into the mood of already being or already having what you desire, you are impressing the subconscious mind with a new reality, and the subconscious, being faithful, brings forth that impression into form. The law does not question whether the feeling you hold is good or bad, desirable or undesirable. It only knows to reproduce what is impressed upon it with persistence. This is why it is not enough to merely think of your wish. You must feel the reality of it until it stirs your being. Thinking without feeling is like planting seeds on barren ground, but feeling impregnates the soil of consciousness, and once accepted as real within, it must take root and grow. Do not be deceived by appearances, for appearances are only the echoes of yesterday's feelings. If today you can generate the feeling of already living in your fulfilled desire, tomorrow must reveal itself in harmony with that inner state. Feeling real is the bridge that connects imagination to manifestation, the power that bypasses logic and circumstance to command the unseen forces of life. Whatever you sustain in feeling, whether of joy, success, or sorrow, whether of wealth or lack, must eventually harden into fact. For feeling is the one undeniable reality from which all things emerge. You are not waiting for blessings, you generate them, for the source of every gift you seek is already within you. Too often people look to the outside world, to circumstances, to other people, or to chance, believing that life will someday deliver what they desire. But in truth, the outer world is powerless without the inner state that sustains it. The blessings you long for are not withheld by some distant force. They are born from the assumptions and feelings you nurture within yourself. The act of waiting implies separation, as though what you desire exists apart from you. Yet the moment you understand that you are the very channel through which blessings flow, you cease to wait and begin to create. Every image you form in imagination, every state you choose to occupy, every feeling you dwell upon is the substance of blessing itself. To generate blessings is to awaken to your own creative nature, to accept the role of being the operant power, the one who decides what will unfold. You generate love by assuming yourself already love. You generate abundance by embodying the feeling of wealth. You generate health by assuming the state of wholeness. The blessing is not something given to you. It is something expressed through you. And once you embody it inwardly, the world has no choice but to conform. When you stop waiting, you step into the freedom of creation. You are never at the mercy of time or chance, for life only mirrors the state you carry. Therefore, to generate blessings is simply to claim your divine inheritance, to live now as though what you desire were already yours. And in doing so, you set the unseen into motion and call forth the visible evidence of your inner conviction. Withdraw from appearances and live in the end. For the outer world is nothing more than a reflection of past states, a shadow of what you once entertained within yourself. To remain fixated on appearances is to chain yourself to the old, to give power to illusions that have no life except the one you lend them through attention. Appearances seem real only because they are already solidified from earlier assumptions, but if you wish to transform your life, you must learn to withdraw your focus from what is and turn it fully to what you desire to be. Living in the end is the art of dwelling so completely in the feeling of the wish fulfilled that the present world loses its hold over you. It does not mean ignoring reality, but transcending it, choosing instead to give your loyalty to the invisible reality that you claim as already true. When you live in the end, you no longer argue with facts, you no longer wait for signs, you no longer measure progress by appearances. You inhabit the inner world of your desire as though it were already accomplished, and from this state you move, think, speak, and act. Life must then mirror back the state you consistently occupy, for consciousness is the only reality. Withdraw from appearances by refusing to let them dictate your emotions. Refuse to be swayed by delays or contradictions. Remain inwardly faithful to the feeling of already having, already being, already doing what you desire, and that unseen loyalty will crystallize into visible form. Every time you shift your focus away from appearances and return to the end, you are watering the seed of your desire. The outer world may show you the opposite, but do not be deceived, for it is only a temporary echo of your old state. The new state, if persistently lived in, must eventually override the old and become fact. To live in the end is to walk by inner conviction rather than by sight, to know that imagination creates reality, and to let the invisible become more real to you than the visible. This practice demands faith, persistence, and a refusal to compromise with doubt, yet it is the surest path to manifestation. Withdraw from appearances and live in the end until it feels natural, and when it becomes natural, the world will reflect it with perfect precision. Feel the wish fulfilled until it is natural. For the moment a desire becomes natural to you, it ceases to be a struggle and begins to flow effortlessly into form. The secret of manifestation is not in forcing results or endlessly seeking signs, but in cultivating the inner conviction that what you long for is already yours. Feeling is the key, because it is not cold thought or empty words that impress the subconscious, but the vivid emotional certainty that accompanies belief. When you generate the feeling of already being or having the thing you desire, You are planting the seed of fulfillment in the fertile ground of consciousness, and once planted, it must bring forth after its kind. At first, the feeling of the wish fulfilled may seem strange, even unreal, for the senses contradict it and the outer world appears unchanged. But persistence is the law. As you repeatedly return to that inner state, as you rehearse it in imagination and surrender to it in your quiet moments, the unfamiliar becomes familiar, and the unfamiliarity dissolves into naturalness. It is when you no longer have to remind yourself, when you no longer wonder if it will happen, when you move about your day carrying the quiet confidence of its reality, that you know the state has taken root. What was once an effort becomes effortless, for the subconscious has accepted it as fact, and life now bends itself to express that assumption. To feel the wish fulfilled until it is natural is to embody it, to live from it rather than towards it. It is no longer something you hope for or reach toward. It is something you rest in, something you know yourself to already be. This naturalness dissolves doubt, quiets impatience, and eliminates the tendency to chase after results, because you understand the result is already secured within. The outer world, being a delayed reflection, cannot help but catch up with the conviction you carry inside. Naturalness is the sign of true assumption. When it feels ordinary to you to possess what you once longed for, when you no longer feel a gap between your desire and your reality, you have crossed the bridge of imagination. This is why you must persist in the feeling, not merely think of it once or twice, but dwell in it, saturate yourself with it, sleep in it, awaken in it, and return to it whenever doubts arise. Over time, the state fuses with your identity, and once it fuses, manifestation becomes inevitable. Feeling the wish fulfilled until it is natural is the practice of aligning your inner world with the reality you choose to experience. It is the conscious refusal to bow to appearances, and the deliberate choice to honor imagination as the true creative power. By making it natural, you dissolve the sense of waiting, for you can only wait for something absent, and what feels natural is never absent. It is present, alive, and real within you. And the world must eventually echo that truth. Do not seek signs. Be the sign, for the moment you search the outer world for confirmation, you declare through your very seeking that the fulfillment is absent. To chase after signs is to live in doubt, to affirm separation from the thing you desire. But to be the sign is to embody the reality you long for in the present moment. Signs follow states, never the other way around. The outer world can only mirror the inner conviction you hold. If you occupy the state of being the one who already has, already is, already lives the wish fulfilled, then the world must show you evidence that corresponds with that state. But if you wait for a sign before you believe, you invert the law, and in doing so, you bind yourself to the very absence you wish to escape. To be the sign is to carry yourself as though you are already the embodiment of your desire. It is not arrogance, nor pretense, but a quiet knowing that imagination creates reality. You no longer need the world to prove anything to you, because you have already proven it to yourself inwardly. When you move, speak, and think from the standpoint of already being fulfilled, you radiate an energy that cannot be hidden. This energy is the sign, for others will sense it, circumstances will bend around it, and life itself will rearrange to match the vibration you maintain. The true sign is never outside of you, it is the change in your own consciousness. So many look for numbers, coincidences, dreams, or subtle hints that their manifestation is on its way. Yet these things, even when they appear, are only shadows pointing back to the inner shift that produced them. To make the shadows your focus is to miss the substance. The only true assurance you need is your own ability to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in it until it feels natural. That assumption itself is the sign. When you feel the reality within and dwell in it consistently, you no longer crave reassurance, for you know that the outer must conform. Becoming the sign means you no longer ask, when will it happen? But instead live as though it has already happened. You stop watching the clock, you stop measuring progress by appearances, you stop waiting altogether. Waiting implies distance, but being the sign implies presence. It means living so deeply in the end that it colors your thoughts, shapes your emotions, and informs your behavior. It is not a matter of pretending or acting for the sake of others. It is a matter of sincerely inhabiting the inner conviction until it saturates your being. When you are the sign, you walk differently, you think differently, you feel differently, and the outer world cannot help but reflect the difference. Signs will come, yes, but they are never the cause. They are the effect. They are echoes, reflections, confirmations of a shift that has already taken place within you. If you make them your focus, you enslave yourself to shadows. But if you make your inner assumption your focus, you are free, for you have placed your attention on the cause rather than the effect. The true work is not to wait for signs, but to persist in being the sign. Let the sign be the confidence you carry, the peace you feel, the knowing you refuse to abandon. That inner conviction is the only evidence required, and once it is held faithfully, the outer world will overflow with signs far greater than anything you could have imagined. Do not seek signs, be the sign, and the world will testify to your inner transformation in ways that leave no doubt about the creative power within you. Sleep each night in the state of the realized desire. For the last impressions you carry into the silence of sleep sink deep into the subconscious and shape the conditions of your waking life. Sleep is the gateway through which your conscious thoughts pass into the fertile soil of the subconscious, and whatever state you surrender to becomes the seed planted in that unseen realm. If you go to bed rehearsing worries, reliving failures, or dwelling on what is missing, then you are planting those very conditions to grow and reappear in your world. But if you deliberately enter the feeling of already being the one you wish to be, if you surrender to the sense of fulfillment as though your desire were already accomplished, then the subconscious receives that assumption as fact and begins to organize circumstances to mirror it. To sleep in the state of the realized desire is to make your imagination more real to you than the events of the day. It is to close the door on appearances and open the door to the unseen reality you have chosen. In this sacred moment before sleep, you hold the brush that paints the canvas of tomorrow. You need not force the picture. It is enough to gently assume it, to feel it as true, and to let that feeling carry you into unconscious rest. The subconscious never sleeps, and while your conscious mind rests, the deeper self works faithfully, bringing forth in waking life what you have impressed upon it in the drowsy borderland of night. Many underestimate the power of sleep, yet it is in this state of surrender that the mind is most receptive. The barriers of logic, doubt, and resistance dissolve as you drift between waking and sleeping, leaving the imagination free to impress its images without interruption. This is why Neville emphasized the importance of the state akin to sleep, a condition where you are relaxed, still, and detached from the noise of the outer world. In that drowsy condition, you can more easily step into the scene of your fulfilled desire, touch it with your inner senses, and let the feeling saturate your being until it becomes the last thought you carry into slumber. You need not rehearse endlessly or strain to maintain the vision. A few vivid moments of feeling are enough if they are genuine. The goal is not length but intensity, not repetition but conviction. One flash of real inner experience is more powerful than hours of weak imagining. Let the scene be simple, something that implies the fulfillment without effort. If you desire abundance, imagine yourself holding the evidence of it. If you desire love, imagine the warmth of already being embraced. If you desire success, imagine the satisfaction of having accomplished it. The details are not as important as the feeling, for it is the feeling that impresses, and the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the seed of manifestation. As you drift into sleep, let go of the outer world entirely. Do not carry the weight of the day into the silence of the night. Lay aside the facts of failure, the memories of struggle, the doubts of the senses, and replace them with the inner conviction that it is done. You are not deceiving yourself, you are creating yourself. You are not lying to your mind, you are directing it. The outer world is only the delayed reflection of inner states, and if you persist in planting the right seeds at night, the harvest must follow in the day. This practice, when repeated faithfully, transforms not only your nights but your days. Each morning you awaken more aligned with the reality you have assumed. Each day becomes a confirmation of the seed planted the night before. Over time, you notice subtle shifts, synchronicities, changes in your perception, and eventually the outer evidence must appear. It cannot fail, for the law is unfailing as within, so without. Sleep is not an escape from life. It is participation in creation. It is the sacred moment when you, the dreamer, write the script for tomorrow's play. To sleep each night in the state of the realized desire is to live in the end until it feels natural, to trust imagination as the power of creation, and to surrender to the unseen as though it were the only reality. When this becomes your habit, the line between dreaming and waking blurs, and you find that life itself has become the dream made real, a reflection of the states you dared to embody in the silence of your own mind. Persistence in assumption guarantees manifestation. For the law of consciousness does not waver, it does not bend to chance, nor does it operate on the fleeting moods of the day. Life itself is compelled to bring forth the fruits of the inner states you consistently hold. An assumption, once persisted in, hardens into fact. The world you live in is nothing but the out-pictured reflection of what you have inwardly assumed, whether knowingly or unknowingly. One passing thought or one moment of imagination may stir a possibility, but it is persistence, the steady, unwavering occupation of a state, that ensures its birth into reality. To assume is to accept inwardly that something is already true, regardless of what your senses declare. But in the beginning, the old reality still confronts you. The facts of yesterday's beliefs still echo, and appearances may scream the opposite of what you now desire. This is where persistence becomes the great secret. To persist is to refuse to be disheartened by delay, to refuse to be deceived by appearances, to refuse to abandon the inner conviction that your desire is already fulfilled. It is easy to assume for a moment. It is power to persist until that assumption becomes natural, effortless, and self-sustaining. Persistence is the fire that melts resistance. Every time you return to the wish fulfilled, every time you choose the inner reality over the outer contradiction, you are training the subconscious. You are reconditioning the self. You are impressing the truth until it becomes automatic. Doubt may arise, appearances may tempt you to waver, but persistence is the refusal to give them power. You turn again and again to the end, living in it, feeling it, surrendering to it, until it saturates your being. This steady loyalty to your assumption is what transforms imagination into experience. The subconscious mind does not respond to occasional thoughts, but to dominant feelings. And persistence is how a thought becomes dominant. You need not struggle or force belief, you need only persist, to return gently but firmly to the inner state whenever you wander from it. Like water carving stone, persistence does its work quietly, consistently, and inevitably. What you persist in inwardly must sooner or later show itself outwardly, for consciousness is the only cause, and assumption the only path by which cause becomes effect. Do not measure progress by the outer world, for the outer is always behind the inner. When you persist in assumption, the change is first invisible, unfolding beneath the surface where no eye can see. To doubt because you see no evidence is to abandon the seed before it can sprout. Yet to persist, even in the face of silence, is to trust the law, and to know that the unseen work is already in motion. Faith is persistence without evidence, the quiet certainty that what you assume, if held, must appear. Persistence in assumption is not effort in the sense of straining or forcing. It is effortlessness born of loyalty. It is not the frantic repetition of affirmations, but the calm dwelling in the inner conviction that it is already done. You may return to it in imagination. You may feel it before sleep. You may carry it with you in the quiet moments of the day, but always in the spirit of fulfillment, not longing. Longing affirms absence, but persistence affirms presence. By persisting in presence, you dissolve the old patterns of lack and plant new seeds of abundance. Love, health, or whatever your heart desires. Every master of the inner life has taught the same truth: the world is imagination outpictured, and imagination sustained becomes fact. The difference between a passing wish and a realized desire is persistence. Many give up too soon, discouraged by the outer world, but those who persist discover that the law never fails. What you persist in assuming becomes the atmosphere of your being, and life must echo that atmosphere. It cannot be otherwise, for consciousness is the sole reality. Therefore, cultivate persistence as a way of living. When fear arises, persist in courage. When doubt whispers, persist in certainty. When appearances contradict, persist in the unseen truth. Let persistence be your shield and your anchor, carrying you through the fluctuations of the senses until the invisible becomes visible. The one who persists does not ask if it will come. He knows it must come, for he has already claimed it inwardly. Persistence in assumption guarantees manifestation because it aligns you with the eternal law that consciousness creates reality. It is the discipline of the dreamer who refuses to awaken in defeat, the strength of the creator who knows that what is held within must be reflected without. To persist is to remain faithful to your vision, to marry it until it becomes flesh, to embody it until it is no longer an effort, but a fact of being. And when persistence has done its quiet work, you find yourself living in the very reality you once only imagined, not by accident, not by chance, but by the unwavering law of assumption faithfully applied. You are the operant power of your reality, for nothing has authority over your life unless you first give it permission within yourself. Every condition you face, every circumstance you encounter, every experience you call your own, is but the reflection of an inner state you have assumed, whether consciously or unconsciously. Life does not happen to you, it happens through you. It mirrors the assumptions you sustain, the feelings you entertain, the convictions you refuse to release. To recognize yourself as the operant power is to step out of the role of victim and into the role of creator. To know that no one and nothing outside of you is determining your destiny. You are not at the mercy of luck, fate, or chance, for these are names given to the results of unseen assumptions. When you understand that consciousness is the only reality, you no longer wait for life to deliver blessings. You realize you are the source from which blessings flow. The law of assumption is impersonal and exact. Whatever you assume and persist in must manifest, not because of effort or struggle, but because the universe has no choice but to reflect the state you embody. You are the operant power, because you are the one who decides what to accept as true. No one can do this for you, and nothing can stop you once you are loyal to your inner vision. To be the operant power means that you no longer live as a reactor to the world around you. You do not let circumstances dictate your moods or shape your beliefs. Instead, you use imagination to create the state you choose to inhabit, and you persist in it until it solidifies into fact. The outer world is not the cause but the effect, not the master but the servant. To reverse this truth is to live in bondage, forever chasing shadows and reacting to echoes. To live by this truth is to claim freedom, knowing that everything begins and ends within your own consciousness. Most people live as though life is happening outside of them, as though events are random and circumstances are beyond control. But every experience, whether pleasant or painful, is the result of an inner state once entertained. If you persist in feeling unworthy, the world will reflect conditions of lack, rejection, or struggle. If you persist in feeling fulfilled, the world will reflect abundance, recognition, and ease. You are always proving the law to yourself, whether you know it or not. To be unconscious of the law is to manifest by default, creating out of fear, doubt, and habit. To be conscious of the law is to create with intention, shaping reality by assuming and persisting in the states you desire. The role of the operant power is not passive. It requires awareness, discipline, and persistence. It means you must withdraw attention from appearances and place it on the unseen reality of your fulfilled desire. It means you must take responsibility for every condition in your world, not to blame yourself, but to empower yourself with the knowledge that if you created it, you can uncreate it. And if you can uncreate it, you can create a new. Responsibility is liberation, for it places the key back into your hands. No longer can you claim that life is against you, for life is only ever reflecting you. To wield this power, you must train yourself to dwell more in imagination than in appearances. Imagination is the workshop of creation, the unseen stage upon which the play of your life is written. When you imagine and feel as though your desire were already fulfilled, you are planting the seed of a new reality. The subconscious, which accepts without question whatever it is impressed with, takes this assumption and brings it forth into visible fact. You need not know how it will unfold, for the how is not your concern. Your only task is to assume the end and persist in that assumption until it feels natural. Life then rearranges itself in ways beyond your reasoning to deliver the result. Being the operant power means you are always creating, whether by design or default. Every thought entertained with feeling, every state you consistently inhabit, every conviction you refuse to release is shaping the world you experience. The law does not sleep, nor does it pause. The question is not whether you are creating, but whether you are creating consciously. When you know you are the operant power, you no longer leave your life to chance. You deliberately select the state you desire. You dwell in it, you feel it as real, and you persist until the world echoes back your choice. It is not enough to know this intellectually. The true mastery comes when you practice it until it becomes second nature. When challenges arise, do not collapse into fear, but remind yourself, I am the operant power. When appearances contradict your vision, do not abandon your desire, but reaffirm, I am the operant power. When doubts whisper, silence them with the truth. Imagination creates reality, and I create by assumption. This persistent remembrance is the difference between the dreamer who never awakens and the creator who commands reality. To live as the operant power is to understand that no one else can assume for you. Others may encourage, inspire, or teach, but they cannot imagine for you. They cannot persist in your stead. This is your responsibility, but it is also your glory. For it means you are never dependent on another for your happiness, success, or fulfillment. You are the center of your world, and your world must conform to the assumptions you sustain. This recognition brings freedom, but also humility, for you realize that every condition you dislike was also born of your own state. Instead of despairing, you rejoice, for this means you have the power to change it. The same law that brought forth lack will bring forth abundance. The same law that created struggle will create ease. The same law that mirrored fear will mirror love. Once you change your inner assumption, you are never trapped, except by your own refusal to assume differently. The greatest illusion is that power lies outside of you, in circumstances, in other people, in chance. But the truth is unwavering. You are the operant power of your reality. To live by this truth is to walk with confidence, to act with faith, to rest in the assurance that life itself is responding to you. When you claim this power, you cease to beg, chase, or wait, and instead you assume, embody, and persist. And in doing so, you discover that reality is not something happening to you, but something happening through you, a mirror reflecting the states you dare to occupy.